on the days and off days. A very good afternoon to all of you. At the outset, I'm really fortunate enough to introduce Anjali Bharadwaj Madam, who has been closely associated with the right to information movement in India since the year 2000 and is a co-convener of the National Campaign for People's Right to Information. NCPRI has played a crucial role in campaigning for a strong RTI Act in India, and since the passage of the law in 2005, she has been working to ensure its effective implementation. NCPRI has been advocating for a series of anti-corruption and grievance redress laws, including the Whistleblowers Protection Act. It works closely with other movements and campaigns in the country on the use of RTI Act to seek accountability. Anjali Madam is the founder of Satark Nagrik Sangathan, SNS, a citizens group working in the slum settlements of Delhi with a mandate to promote transparency in government functioning and to assist people in using the RTI Act to access information of relevance to them. She has been leading efforts to monitor the implementation of the RTI Act in India and has co-authored several national reports. She is associated with various rights-based struggles in India and is a member of the steering committee of the National Right to Food campaign and the campaign for judicial accountability and reforms. We are really thankful to you, Madam, for accepting our invitation to speak on the memorial lecture of Janab Zainuddin Ali Khan, who is a voracious journalist and a philanthropist of Telangana. He has served in many capacities and he has contributed a lot for Telangana. And we are indeed very thankful to you, Madam. And Madam is going to speak about the currently involved program where you find a lot of ruckus being created on electoral democracy in India. And Madam is going to speak about the challenges in electoral democracy in India. I invite Madam to speak on the occasion.
హలో మేడం గారు చేసేది జహీర్ అలీ ఖాన్ సార్ మెమోరియల్ ఇచ్చారు. సార్ చనిపోయినప్పుడు మొదటగా అంటే జయశంకర్ మెమోరియల్ ఇచ్చారులోనే గద్దర్ గారు చనిపోయారు. గద్దర్ గారి అంతిమ యాత్రలో జహీర్ అలీ ఖాన్ గారు వెళ్ళారు. మొదటగా జహీర్ అలీ ఖాన్ సార్ సంస్మరణ సభను కూడా మనమే నిర్వహించాము. మొదటిది ఇప్పటివరకు చివరిది కూడా అదే మనమే నిర్వహించాము. వారి పేరు మీద కూడా ఇది ట్రిబ్యూట్గా మెమోరియల్ ఇచ్చారు. మేడం ప్లీజ్.
सभी को जिंदाबाद जिंदाबाद जोहार जोहार. Respected friends and colleagues on the dais, Professor Hargopal, Professor Shri Krishna Deva Rao ji, Mr. Nagayan ji, Mr. Yadaya ji, Sujata ji, Jeevan Kumar ji, and of course friends in the audience. I'd like to start by thanking the Telangana Vidya Bandhula Vedika for organizing this memorial lecture in the memory of Professor Jayashankar and Shri Zahir Ali Khan ji, and inviting me to speak to you all on this very important occasion. It's a real honor and a pleasure to be here. I've been asked to speak on challenges to electoral democracy in India. And I think all of us here are very, very aware today of the kind of challenges that we are facing. I will still try and present some of the challenges that in the time that I've been given, and of course place them in the larger context that Professor Rao talked about. Transformative constitutionalism, constitutional morality, much of which we only read in books these days. So, thank you once again for calling me. Elections are the cornerstone of any democracy. And in the Indian Constitution, Article 324 of our Constitution sets up the Election Commission. And the Election Commission, a constitutional body and autonomous body, has been vested with the responsibility of superintendence, direction and control of elections at the parliamentary level and at the state legislatures. What we have seen in our country, and we have taken great pride in, is that by and large, in the largest democracy in the world, we've had free and fair elections for a very, very long time. But the last 7 to 8 years have raised very, very significant challenges, and problems have been highlighted in the functioning of the constitutional body that is responsible for making electoral rolls and for holding elections in the country, the Election Commission of India, and also in the conduct of elections. We have seen tremendous problems being highlighted. Before the 2019 elections, selective action started getting taken by the Election Commission of India. Now, the Election Commission is really supposed to be a referee. To be able to hold free and fair elections in the country, the referee must not be seen to be acting in a selective manner. But what we have seen, even before the 2019 elections, was that when there were very serious complaints of the violation of the model code of conduct that were being made against the ruling party at the center, the Election Commission was not acting, or acting in such a belated manner that action became useless. So we had suddenly before the 2019 general elections, Namo TV that came up. Many of you would remember. And the Namo TV was basically giving us a lot of propaganda about the ruling party in power, the Bharatiya Janata Party, and about the Prime Minister. Very glorious things. Suddenly came up, and suddenly it went off after elections. There were complaints about Namo TV that were made with the Election Commission, but the Election Commission did not act on time. Similarly, there were hate speeches, alleged hate speeches, that were being made by members, senior netas of the ruling party, leaders of the ruling party, but no action was being taken against them. On the other hand, the moment there was a complaint against any leader of opposition, of any opposition party, the Election Commission seemed to act with tremendous alacrity. Almost immediately, there would be some action that would be taken. This kind of selective action was being pointed out by civil society, by people, but a voice against it came even from within the Election Commission. We had one of the election commissioners, Mr. Ashok Lavasa, who went on record to say that when he was dissenting against, I have a loud voice, but I don't know if it is carried.
It will come. It will come.
What it is that you can carry on there. No.
Generator on this. Generator on this.
Sir, Yakub sir. Yakub sir. Yes. Clear.
Mr. Ashok Lavasa, the election commissioner, went on to resign from the election commission, saying that when he was filing dissent notes on this problem where ruling party leaders were not being acted against adequately and on time, and members of the opposition, leaders of the opposition were being immediately acted against, and he submitted letters of dissent. Those notes of dissent were not even being taken on record. So it's not something imaginary. You know, very often we are told by election commissioners that people have gotten into this terrible habit of doubting. So I am simply stating here that this particular problem of selective action by the election commission is not just something that was being highlighted by citizens and citizens groups. It was also something that came from within the election commission itself. Now, when these kinds of things happen, one natural question that arises is, how are our election commissioners being appointed? How are they being selected to these very, very important constitutional positions? Now, under the Constitution of India, it is very clear that a law had to be made for the selection of election commissioners in the country and the chief election commissioner. Until a law was brought in, the executive had to do the selection and the appointment was to be made by the president of the country. A law was never brought in our country, and as a result, it was the executive that was repeatedly making appointments since the time of independence of these election commissioners. Now, when things were going by and large all right, and the election commission was seen to be doing its constitutional duty, there was not so much alarm. But when selective action and other problems started happening, naturally, people were concerned, and a petition was moved in the Supreme Court challenging the manner of selection of election commissioners and the chief election commissioner. The Supreme Court went into very great detail. There were long hearings that happened, and finally, in the Anup Baranwal case, the Supreme Court said that a referee cannot be appointed by any one player. So the Supreme Court essentially said that the ruling party, because the executive is essentially the ruling party should not control the selection of the election commissioners. And the court very clearly said that a balanced selection committee must be set up for selection of election commissioners and the chief election commissioner. Now, the court said that a law must be brought, but till a law is brought with this balanced committee, the court said 3 people will make the selection: the Prime Minister of India, the Leader of Opposition, and the Chief Justice of India. Recognizing how important election commission is, this was the composition of the selection committee that was decided by the Supreme Court. But what happened? Very soon after this judgment was delivered by the Supreme Court, the government at the center moved into action. They quickly brought in a bill into Parliament and rushed it through Parliament, in which the Leader of Opposition and Prime Minister were still there on the selection committee, but the Chief Justice of India was replaced by a Union Cabinet Minister. So effectively, what the Supreme Court had ruled was undone. Because we again had this situation where the election commissioners were to be appointed by a selection committee where there was a preponderance of the ruling party. So 2:1, the Prime Minister and a Union Cabinet Minister from the ruling party and the Leader of Opposition. So 2 votes is to 1. And there was a huge hue and cry where people said that this is undoing a very landmark judgment of the Supreme Court, and a challenge was brought against it in the Supreme Court. But while the court was still in the process of hearing the matter, the government went ahead and appointed election commissioners. So we had the appointment of the election commissioner, the chief who retired recently, Mr. Rajiv Kumar. We had another election commissioner who was appointed, and more recently, the current chief election commissioners and election commissioners have also been appointed by a selection committee which has a preponderance of the ruling party. Now, one thing is that this erodes people's trust in the election commission, because people have understood through the Supreme Court judgment how important it is to have the right sort of selection process so that our referee can work in an independent manner and conduct elections. But if we also look at the way the election commissioners have been functioning since then, it just further adds to the problems and to the lack of trust that people have now in the election commission. We all know that the latest salvo from the election commission has been the SIR of voter lists in Bihar. The special intensive revision of the Bihar voter lists was announced on the 24th of June by the Election Commission of India in complete secrecy, without any information to any citizen of the country, without any information or consultation with citizens of the country or to the political parties. The SIR was announced on the 24th of June by the Election Commission in a press conference where they said, we will not just do it for Bihar, we will also roll out the SIR for the entire country. So the SIR of the voter lists is not just for the 8 crore people on the voter lists of Bihar. It is for nearly the 99 or 100 crore people of the country who could be on the voter list. So this announcement was brought in complete secrecy, without any consultation in a democracy. We just heard about transformative constitutionalism, how we got transformed from subjects to citizens through our constitution, but such an important decision which would impact the lives and the ability to vote of lakhs of people in the country, that was taken without any information to us, without any consultation with us or our political parties. The Election Commission, when the matter was taken up in the Supreme Court, gave an affidavit. And they said, we did an independent appraisal, and on the basis of that, we are going to do this exercise. The big question was, where is that independent appraisal? I have not seen it. The judges have not seen it. No one in the country has seen this independent appraisal on the basis of which this mammoth exercise is being undertaken in our country, in one of the states right now, and it is going to be done across the country. Look at the manner in which this exercise is being done. Nobody is even contesting the fact that the Election Commission has the right to purify and verify electoral rolls. But the process by which the SIR is being undertaken is so hugely problematic. Only 11 documents can be shown, and to prove that you're an eligible voter, you have to prove your citizenship, you have to prove that you're the ordinary resident of that place, and that you're above 18 years of age. This kind of an exercise from all our sources has never been undertaken before by the Election Commission. They are asking for 11 documents like passports, like birth certificates of the person and their parents. I can challenge you that even in this room today, where we come from fairly privileged backgrounds, not all of us will have birth certificates or those of our parents. How many people living in a village, living in a slum, have a passport or a matriculation certificate? The kind of documents that have been sought have really raised the fear and anxiety of people being left out of voter rolls, of them getting disenfranchised. Documents that people usually have, Aadhaar card, their voter ID card, ration cards, all of these were not included in the list of documents that have to be given so that you can prove that you're a citizen. And the Election Commission is saying that everybody is wrong, that we have done this exercise before. Because people are saying, you've never done this before. The Election Commission is saying, no, we have. We did it in 2003 in Bihar. So the question was, please show us the orders and the guidelines of 2003. When you did this exercise in Bihar, the Election Commission has not shared the guidelines till date. Not with the court, not with the people. It is not there. The guidelines of 2003 are not there on the website of the Election Commission. They are not available when journalists are asking. They are saying they can't be traced. They must be lying somewhere. We can't trace them. This is how the Election Commission is functioning. 65 lakh voters have been deleted, have not been included in the voter list after the first phase of the SIR in Bihar. Now these 65 lakh voters, basically if you break them down in the number of constituencies in Bihar, it comes to an average of 27,000 voters per constituency. In a state like Bihar, where elections are won by a narrow margin, hundreds of votes, thousands of votes, 27,000 votes is more than the winning margin in the last election for 2/3 of the constituencies. So what we are talking about is effectively changing the entire electoral outcome in a state. 65 lakh voters being cut out could mean that the entire election outcome could be changed. Election commissioners of the country have repeatedly said that voter lists are the underbelly, the soft underbelly of elections. If you tweak the voter lists in a certain manner, you can change the electoral outcomes. And we are asking the Election Commission, people are asking the Election Commission, please be transparent. Please tell us who are these 65 lakh people and tell us the reasons why you have not included their names, why have you deleted their names. The Election Commission essentially did not give the information. Even to get this basic information, the Supreme Court had to direct the Election Commission that give the names, give the list of all these 65 lakh people with the reasons. Tell everyone why you deleted their names. You're saying somebody died, so give the name of the person who you claim is dead and write in front of their name, deleted due to death. The Election Commission is saying many people have migrated permanently out of Bihar. So the Supreme Court said, write their names of those who are permanently migrated and tell them. They are saying they are duplications. So the Supreme Court is saying, please tell them. Now this is such basic information. We've seen so many videos coming from the ground. Journalists like Ajit Anjum, others, Saurabh Shukla, all of them doing tremendous work on the ground to show the kind of problems that are happening. Where people who are never submitted their form have been included in the list. People who submitted their forms are left out. And in a situation like that, the Election Commission needed to be told by the Supreme Court of India to put out this list. And today, if you see on the ground, people are actually using those lists, and there are very large-scale anomalies that are coming out, where people are saying, I'm alive, and my name is on the list of those who are dead, and I have been disenfranchised, and I want to go and file a claim. Such basic information, which has such a lot of importance for people, is not being given till there is this huge effort that is made. In the middle of all of this SIR exercise and controversy, the leader of opposition, Mr. Rahul Gandhi, did a press conference. Many of you would have probably seen the press conference or at least heard about it. He gave evidence, he gave figures. I'm not saying they're all right or they're wrong, but he gave figures for the Bangalore Central constituency, where he showed how there were more than 1 lakh fake voters. He said that there was a list which he produced over there in the press conference of more than 1 lakh fake voters, people where there were bulk voters on one address. In one small room, 80 people were shown as living. There were people who, there were duplicate names, their same name appearing 4 times, 5 times in the voter list, so clearly a problem. There were people whose fathers' names were written as A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H instead of their names. Their addresses were given as house number 0. Now, these are the kind of allegations that any constitutional body that is responsible for holding free and fair elections and expects to have people's trust must immediately address. Unfortunately, the kind of response that has come from the Election Commission so far is nothing short of shocking. The Election Commission is insisting that the leader of opposition give on oath an affidavit with all of this, otherwise the Election Commission is not acting and not doing anything on this evidence that has been given. Now this is so shocking and goes against the fabric of our constitution. Because what would one imagine? If any one of us was the election commissioner and we knew that there was nothing wrong that was happening, we would call a meeting with the leader of opposition, with other opposition parties and say, please give us, let's sit on the table, give us the evidence, we will go through everything, we will do a sunwai, we will do karwai, we will actually appoint an inquiry committee and see what is happening. After all, let us not forget that the Election Commission is merely an 800 people body. There are only 800 people in the Election Commission. The lakhs and lakhs of people who work for the Election Commission are from the government. So the Election Commission has always therefore said that opposition parties, people, media are the eyes and ears of the Election Commission. If there is something wrong that's happening, tell us. That's the only way we can take corrective action. Should the Election Commission not have called all the parties, sat with them, ordered inquiries, and in fact, I would say even do a live webcast of it so that all of us could see as citizens? We are not subjects, we are citizens. Our trust in the Election Commission is important. Instead, the Election Commission chooses to say, we are not going to inquire into this till an affidavit on oath the leader of opposition gives us. Absolutely bizarre. FIRs have been filed on journalists that have been showing the truth on the ground on the SIR. I mean, this is where we are, where the Election Commission used to have an app called the C-Vigil app, where any citizen was encouraged to file a complaint and the Election Commission would say, thank you, I will not act on it. But now, if somebody is showing the truth on the ground and FIR is filed against them, then how dare you? So this is where we are in terms of how do we trust the Election Commission. Another very important issue that has come up in the recent elections is voter turnout. The first time in 2024 general elections, the Election Commission did not tell us the absolute number of voter turnout in the country. Absolute number of voter turnout is nothing great. It's not any, major, big thing that we're asking for. It is just the number of people who came to vote. The Election Commission till date has not put out the voter turnout from the statutory form 17C, that is the only statutory form and record of how many people turned out to vote. We saw what happened in the general elections in 2024. The Election Commission gave voter turnout percentages, and those percentages that were given out on the day at the end of polling, at the time that polling closed, the figure that was given 2 days later was vastly increased. There was an increase of 7% in some cases, in some constituencies. In Odisha, I'm coming straight from Odisha right now, there was an increase of between 15 to 30% in the voter turnout. The BJD has actually written a letter which they shared also, where they have said that this is unthinkable, it's unprecedented. This really goes to the heart of elections. We are talking about potential ballot stuffing. We are talking about fake voters. Because what is the Election Commission telling us? They are telling us that a certain number of people came to vote. At the end of the day of polling, they are giving us that figure. And the figure that they are giving us 1 day later or 2 days later is 30% higher than the figure. Are they actually trying to tell us that those many lakhs and crores of people were standing in queues and waiting? Because we know that if you reach a polling station late, you can't vote. Only those who are standing in a queue at the time of close of polling, they are given coupons. Their number of coupons are entered in the presiding officer's diary, and CCTV footage and photographs are taken so that there is no scope for any kind of wrongdoing. Now, naturally, when this kind of voter turnout increase happened, people asked for 3 things. They asked for the Form 17C Part 1, because that has the voter turnout. People said, let us satisfy ourselves. We want to see Form 17C, what the real voter turnout is. The Election Commission has refused to share Form 17C so far. People said, let us see the CCTV camera footage. All of you might have seen and might remember in Chandigarh mayor elections how the presiding officer, Mr. Anil Masi, was caught on CCTV camera changing the ballot papers, defacing them to make sure that the BJP won. Now we know how important CCTV camera footage can be. The Election Commission, in a recent press conference that they did, the Chief Election Commissioner, Mr. Gyanesh Kumar, said that how can I give the CCTV camera footage? Mataon, bahuon aur behnon ki main footage kaise de? I mean, this is so bizarre. Did the Election Commission ask the Mataएं, Bahuएं and Behneं before making videos? Those videos are surely not for personal viewing. There is a question that is being raised today of fake votes, of electoral votes, electoral rolls might be tampered with. People are asking for evidence. Photographs are not being shared. In fact, after the Haryana elections, state elections, when people asked for Form 17C photographs and CCTV footage, they were not given it. The Punjab and Haryana High Court was approached, and the Punjab and Haryana High Court ruled you have to give the information under Conduct of Election Rules, Rule number 93.2. Because Rule number 93.2 of the Conduct of Election Rules says all electoral records have to be shared with people unless they are explicitly prohibited in Rule 93.1. What did our Election Commission do? Our Election Commission ran to the central government and changed the Conduct of Election Rules. Rule 93.2 was amended. Now we can't get access to CCTV camera footage, to the presiding officer's diary, all of which is so important for people to scrutinize, to check whether elections are happening properly or not. And I'm again stating this. It is not my contention that elections are being rigged. It is not my contention that the electoral rolls are being rigged. But the Election Commission is not acting in a manner which evokes trust in me or any other citizen of this country. The real problem is that we expect an Election Commission, a constitutional body, if they work within the framework of transformative constitutionalism and constitutional morality, that they would stand up and say, nothing to hide. Please, here are the Form 17C, please see them. Here are the CCTV footage and photographs. The Election Commission regularly puts it out on their website when they want to show how many women are coming out to vote. When people are asking, you are going to hide behind the privacy of women and not share these important documents. Why is the Election Commission running away from transparency and accountability? After all, we need to remind the Election Commission that they are not sitting in that position to work for anybody else. They are sitting there to hold elections for the people of this country who are sovereign. Form 17C, the Election Commission has essentially said, we give it to only the polling agents of the candidates. Are elections for polling agents of candidates? When citizens are saying we want to take a look at them, they're saying we will not give. So this is a huge, huge problem that we are facing. And I'm going to stop by saying that this is not just limited to voter lists. We know how today money power is such an important aspect of elections. All of us remember how in 2024 the Supreme Court finally gave the electoral bonds judgment. The electoral bonds were a completely secret instrument that were brought in to give money to any political party. Any industrialist, any corporate, any citizen could give money to a political party and nobody would get to know how much money was given by whom to which party. Complete secrecy. The Election Commission, to begin with, spoke against the electoral bonds. But funnily and strangely enough, when the matter was being agitated in the Supreme Court, the Election Commission changed its stance and said, we see nothing wrong with electoral bonds. And we filed RTI requests to pull out the Election Commission's own letters to the Finance Ministry, to the government, saying, please don't bring in electoral bonds, they will finish our democracy. There will be a few people who will end up gaining because they are the ones who will take money and win elections